Hello then folks, and welcome back to the channel with me, Ben. The last video we made was features you wanted to see in Football Manager, and today we're going to talk about what I would like to see in Football Manager. And as the title says, Football Manager features that are needed desperately, must be in FM23, otherwise I won't be buying it. No, I will be buying it. I always buy it. That's the problem in these videos, folks. We're all going to get it anyway. But before we get into today's video, let me tell you about a deal. I'm hooked up with Fanatical this year to get the game, the cheapest I've ever seen it, at £32.05 using my code and the affiliate link in the description. Of course, there's a little bit of a kickback for me. It helps with me pay for people to edit these videos, which hopefully you're enjoying. Shout out to Chris. Wave Chris. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so if you want to make sure he stays employed, then please do help us out by getting the game with the link in the description. FM23 Benjy at checkout. Yeah, shout out to Fanatical for hooking us up. I waited to see which one would be the cheapest, and this is the one we found. So yeah, it's cheaper than Steam, 29% off, and hopefully you get yourself the game. Right, on with the video. But what I'm going to do then is split these features really into two sections of big features that I think I would love to see in Football Manager, and then some quality of life bits that I also think would be nice as well to see inside of the game. Some of the things I'm going to say in this video aren't these have to be in over other things. There's no priority list on these features really, other than the fact there's some stuff I think are quite big changes and some minor changes. But don't think that I think some features are more important than others. That's an important distinction to make at the start. Before we talk about the graphics. So feature number one for me is, as mentioned, the graphics. And Football Manager, I think, doesn't look, this is how I sum it up, doesn't look like a game that is made in 2022 from a match engine graphics perspective. And all I have to do is compare this game to the other games that produce similar match engines in the marketplace. And yes, FIFA is an entirely different game with an entirely different budget, but as a sports games fan, it's hard not to compare the two. And especially with the game going on to PlayStation and Xbox now, people will be coming over, probably players that have played FIFA before, will see the match engine and think, that looks shit, is what they'll say. Of course, we can compare it to Pro Evolution Soccer and Soccer Manager and Top 11, right? Some of these are more focused as mobile games, but still have their own match engines. And of course, there are issues with the match engine. And we should make a distinction now. The match engine is how the match engine moves, and the graphics engine is how the match engine looks. So actually, I'm talking about the graphics engine for the matches. It's confusing, but hopefully you get it. And I don't need it to be FIFA level, but it would be, I'd be lying if I said it wouldn't be cool if it looked like that. And I think F1 Manager that's come out recently, and admittedly is fully licensed, makes people think that's what it could look like. The levels of detail in that game, and of course, there is loads of conversation around this, in that if you make the game so much better to look at with all the decision making and all the processing that currently goes on within Football Manager, right, and the licensing issues as well of having the cameras be up close and personal with some of the players, you can't show likeness, right, stuff like this. If you don't have the license for every single player on the pitch, it's not an issue FIFA have, so that's why it looks so good. It's not an issue F1 Manager have, but could it look better as a whole from 2012 to now? Has the graphical capability of Football Manager progressed to a level where I think it matters? No. And as someone that plays it as a job, right, and you've watched hundreds and maybe thousands of my videos on this game as well, you're probably at a point now where you'd love it to look more. And I think immersion matters, and I think the match day experience, there's not enough going on, right? So I don't need it to look like FIFA. I don't need close-ups of players constantly. But do I think we need to get closer to that way of it looking? Yeah. And if not soon, when? And yes, I should say this as well. I understand the argument of wanting to have the game be available to as many people as possible on as many different machines as possible. And I, with a really good computer, I'm not the only demographic that buy the game. But quality options are a thing. 2D is a thing. Let's find a middle ground, because it can definitely look better. So in FM23, I hope we see some big changes. I hope we see the game looking, I want to look at it and go, wow, not, I'm looking for differences. Do you know what I mean? That's where I'm at now. From players to crowds to stadiums, all of it. That's a big one as well. It's a lot of the video today. Right then, let's move on. But stay in a similar line, goalkeeper animations. This is quite specific, but for me, it's a matter of the game taking me out of it, where I'm frustrated with decisions that are being made. And it's not just goalkeeper animations, right? It's penalties, it's fouls, it's dribbling. Because this here, what is that? And these things within the graphics engine, for me, have to look better. The match engine, the way that matches play out, I actually think is very good. Like, I've not got major criticisms, other than when the ball is played around in a defensive triangle between goalkeeper and centre backs. I actually think it's pretty good. I've not got too many complaints with it. Of course, they're trying to replicate what football is like in real life, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of that. But graphically, sometimes I see something in the game and I think, it shouldn't do that. And as for a split second, it takes me out of this managerial world that I'm immersing myself into. So goalkeepers sliding or diving or kicking the ball incorrectly or trying to save it with their legs or stopping a save at point blank range and catching it, right? All these things frustrate me, and I don't feel like they've come a long way in the last few years. Again, this is something I would love to see radically different in FM23, so I don't notice it. Goalkeepers should go unnoticed for me. Some of the saves and stuff that they do are sort of really good, and the passing again is quite cool too, but yeah, we're still at a point with it for me where it can be so much better than it is. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Something where I feel like I don't notice those little bits. It's not an easy job, but it's a job that I think is worth doing. All right, let's move away from some of the graphical stuff to the online modes. Now, as the person that created the Streamer Showdown, I am someone that cares about this mode a lot. They did a lot of changes to making the online modes better last year, so I would be really surprised if they do anything to them this year. Knowing the way the Football Manager operates, seeing the way they've developed features over the years, this won't be a year for me that they'll focus on this. But the problem with the online modes, and I'm going to be speaking to lots of you here, that if you don't have friends that play, then you're not playing it. And they have to care about these online modes as much as you do, right? It's like playing FIFA against someone that's not bothered about playing it. The game is not, winning 9-0 is not that fun. So we need a reason to play this mode. And right now, other than a desire to want to play your friends, there is no reason to play. I'm talking ranked leaderboards, prizes at the end of each month, prizes at the end of each week, knockout competitions over a weekend where you have to use set things in different teams. I could make a whole video on this, and I will be doing, if depending on what happens with FM23. But I do think the online modes need more of a reason to be played. There is so much potential there. I look at 10 million people playing FPL, and I look at Football Manager and I think, surely there's a universe where all of this combines, and that's the universe we should be working towards. But yeah, let's do something where people feel a need and want to play. People being better than their friends at a game is how games grow, in my opinion, and this is one of the ways we can do that. Also, I've got more people to beat me in showdowns if this becomes a thing, so I definitely need more of those. All right, my final sort of big one that I think is important, and there's loads that were mentioned in the video before that I'm potentially avoiding that you heard me say in that video I agree with, right? So don't think I don't care about those things. I'm just trying to pick out some new things that I think are important. Manager immersion. Immersion is my phrasing for this year, I think, because I've seen F1 Manager and it's made me think, and I've not played it, but I've watched a lot of it, right? Lots of people have been playing it, and I just watch it and think, man, the visuals of this keep me engaged as a viewer watching it, and I suspect those people playing it feel exactly the same about it. I'm not a huge F1 fan. I'm an F1 fan, but I'm not a huge F1 fan, but I'm seeing their game have an influence on how I view the thing that has been my job for 7 years. So let's talk about it. So for me, at the start of the game, you make a manager profile, which creates a small little bloke on the far side of a touchline on match days, and a profile picture for when you inevitably win 6 Manager of the Month a season. And aside from that, we never really see it in any other form. Why? I think we could use it for loads of different things. Make press conferences more interesting. Have transfer negotiation cutscenes if you want. Have touchline reactions. You can't have close-ups on players because of licensing issues. I'm not licensed. You're not licensed. Let's use it. Let's have it be something where we feel at one with our manager profile. And I know there'll be people going, none of this matters. Do set pieces, do tactic creators, like do all those things. I understand, again, as I mentioned at the start of the video, it's not a matter of priority, and I don't think this should be top of the list. But I just want to feel as if like it matters more what my manager does. In board meetings, have me sat across from a board member, show the back of their heads if we have to, and let me sit on the other side of the desk. Job interviews, right? All these little things you could use it for to make it feel like it's your manager and it's your journey. I think it'd be wicked. I think it would be so cool. I think people would just enjoy it. And again, not necessarily a priority, but for me, the immersion within the game, I think, would be enhanced a lot by things like this. I know FIFA do it. Let's steal it. And also, if people go, I don't want that, that would get boring, that would get tedious, give us the option to turn it off. Pretty easy, isn't it? Goes into the graphics thing as well. Just make it so there's options. Loads of games have video options. All right, there's sort of my big four that I would love to see in the game this year, but I'm not that hopeful, if I'm honest. So let's move to things that I think maybe are a little bit more realistic, that wouldn't necessarily need as much detail. More defined attributes. So there's not huge amounts of areas where we can go with this, but I think there are two that I think are kind of pivotal to players in match engines, and I've thought of a way that we can make this happen without changing the current aesthetic of the attribute page of a player, right? So my examples would be tackling. To me, there are multiple types of tackling. Slide tackling, standing tackling, have them as options. When you click tackling, little drop down, a rating for each. That's how I would do it. And you can do the same thing with passing. Long, medium, short, which is a lot of data analysts now focus on long, medium, short. Short and long is also fine, but like, why not have three and have ratings for those things for those players? There are some players that are really good at short tiki-taka type passing, but couldn't pull off a 60-yard ball on like a regular basis. I want to know the differences between those players, and giving those players those extra bit of detail in their attributes to me just makes sense. There may be other examples out there, and if you think there are, comment section, get involved. Let's see if we can expand this game. But I think rather than adding in standing tackling and slide tackling, just have a little drop down within that menu, and then below that other drop down have like progress within that attribute that already exists. Like there is a page for every attribute in the game, so let's have it in there if necessary. Like, I just think having that bit more information would be cool. The next up is the tactics board, feeling a little bit more fluid. Let me show you what I mean for this one. So within the game, right, you have your tactics board here where you've got X amount of set positions of where you can put players. I wish they would bring back this position, which they got rid of a few years ago. I don't know if it was too powerful or what, or they think that winger attack deals with it anyway, because it's still like a selectable area in terms of where the influence is on the analysis screen. This screen here, I don't think is used enough by anybody, and I would like to see it used more. And I think it's not used because I think visually it's a bit pernickety. There's a lot going on here. I would like it if I could click like zones or areas, because these people probably don't even know this, right? This changes depending on role. So if we take that square there as the example with those 3 dots, right? If I change Earthy's role here to a ball midfielder, guess what? The influence in that role then changes and it's not as pronounced. But I think visually there needs to be a better way of doing that, along with the idea of why are these positions set? Why can't there be zones necessarily? So I could play a player maybe slightly further up, not quite as far up as this, but a little bit lower. There will be arguments to say that roles do this anyway, and you wouldn't necessarily need to move them around. But I think showing what happens with and without the ball within this would be a cool way of doing it as well. So you've kind of got 2 ways of playing. So you'd have a with and without the ball option to see where your players are set and sitting, depending on where and how the ball is moving in a game. I think that would be an interesting element of it. I just feel like it's a bit rigid at the moment, and it could be a little bit more fluid. And this sort of comes from watching managers move those little dots on wherever it is, like little dots on tactics boards, and we can't quite. It's all a bit sit here, sit there, and it moves everyone around. I'd love it to be more fluid. I think it would break the game. I'm going to admit that now. I think it'd probably break the game, but I'm for it. Anyway, Earthy back as a central midfielder. But while we're here, let's go for another feature that I would love in the game, and that is pinned pages. That's what we'll call pinned pages. See all this space down here, and yes, monitor size is a factor, but there's a scroll button on my mouse, and I'm fine with scrolling on here. I think we should be able to pin certain things on this side, and by certain things I mean anything. So if I right click O'Reilly's profile, and here there is a pin to sidebar option, if I want to keep a track of that player or that league or that team or that competition, that should exist on a pinned area down here. And if you want to say you can only have 6 pins, or you can have 10 pins, or an unlimited amount of pins, I'm sure Skinners would have loads of fun with that. I would love to see some pinnable options for things that I would like to get to and navigate to quickly that I can sort of set over on that side. Yeah, you love that idea. Everyone should love that. That's one of my favorite ideas I've ever thought of. And if you thought of it too, kindred spirits, that's fine as well. All right, a couple more to deal with, and they're touching on a little bit of things that people said in the last video that I wanted to expand on a little more. Historical data on request. Now, I think doing this with player data would be too difficult. I think there are too many players in the match engine, in the whole game, that you wouldn't have to focus on the match engine too much today. I think there are too many players in the entire game that you couldn't do this with. It wouldn't be possible. But for teams and the team data that you see at the end of every league season, do you know what I'm talking? I'll show you what I mean. I think this data here, this team data that you get season on season, in the same way that lots of historical data is saved, should also be saved. So I can make comparisons between my team data season on season in a really succinct, nice way. I just think this should exist for longer than one season. I think having it for every player would be a lot more processing, but having it for certain leagues that are selected, or if required, we can request that we hold on to that data in the same that we can hold on to player reports and things like this post-retirement. I just think that would be cool. I just think there's more room for more data to be shown. And again, I could do a whole video on the data hub and the improvements that needs to make. But I think generally just having more data in comparison to previous seasons, so you can see if you're changing tactic, where the big changes are coming in. Like, I just think having that to hand would be great. So I would like that a lot. All right, the final thing to talk about, and it's something a lot of people want, and I'm with you, so let me explain it. Set pieces. Let's do something with set pieces. This is the year to do something with set pieces. People have been asking for a very, very long time for us to do something with them. I say for us to do something with them. For everyone, I don't work for Football Manager. Let me make that clear. I just feel I feel part of them. It's been my life. So for example, in the set piece takers, you have a hierarchy of players that can take free kicks or corners for you, right? In any set way, depending on who's at the club and who you want to do it. And I've got mine wrong here, so it's an easy mistake to make. But this should exist for this, right? And what I'm talking about is prioritizing roles and positions within attacking corners. And defensive ones as well, right? Where you see your superior headers of the ball, or your basically what you could do, give us an option. Keep this, but give us this as a set manually almost, or this would almost be set manually, depending on how you would do it. So there'd be an automatic and a manual option, and the automatic option would be that if I've got a player here at the right centre back, that is priority headerer number 1, who is the best headerer, and give me a list. There's lots of room on this screen. Give me a list. You arguably don't need the defensive part of the screen. So give me a list, and I will set the best headerer, second best headerer, third best headerer. And again, I'm probably basing it on jumping reach and heading and strength and things like that. But let me set it up that way. So, and this is crucial, so that when I have a substitution or an injury, I don't have to change it every single time. It just fills in the next available player. So my best headerer is always at the front post, and my second best headerer is always marking the goalkeeper. That is one of the ways in which we can improve the set piece creator. I'm really nervous with the set piece creator. If you do too much with it and you make it too strong, then it becomes overpowered. And it's not like this doesn't need to be more fluid. Whereas I talked about tactics being more fluid, this I don't think needs to be. Like, these having defined roles I think is fine. It's a bit cricket, but I quite like it if you get the reference. But yeah, I would like to see that as a priority list of players that do things in the same way that we have them set for set piece takers. You have them set for the roles at corners. I think ordinarily, like, if you want your top headerer to mark their best headerer defensively, that should just always be set with the list that I've created. Seems obvious. So there we are then. Those are my features that I would like to see in FM23. That's a lovely rhyme. Of course, let me know all your thoughts on my features and recommendations for this year's game, and hopefully future games as well, right? Luckily they bring one out every single year. And yeah, your thoughts are welcome. Please don't have a go at me for comparing it to FIFA too much and thinking that graphics are the most important thing. They're not the most important thing. They're just something I would think we are. That's the thing that feels left for me. That's not been touched enough. All right, hopefully we get it soon. We love with care. That brings us to the end. If you want to see more of me again, I'm live on Twitch most days, doing a save with Bath. You saw a little bit of it in the background of today's video. I'm in the championship. It's really hard. But I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Oh, and again, FM23 Benjy at checkout. Link in the description. £32.05. It's a bargain. Get yourself the game.